Let's open with pit lane A. This is where the horsepower comes alive. First up, the easiest call on the grid, the matchup number 1, Nvidia versus Intel, Zubin. This isn't even a race. This is like Max Verstappen versus a safety car.
It's brutal. Nvidia's 2025 was outrageous. The Blackwell chip shipped about 2.3 million units. Margins remain stratospheric. But the real moat isn't the chip, Aman. It's CUDA. Nvidia built the software ecosystem that the entire AI world lives in. It's the most entrenched standard since, I would argue, Windows 95.
And Intel, they spent $100 billion on foundries trying to play catch up in the wrong race entirely, as we said way back in episode number 6.
Yeah, and they're essentially competing on a circuit the world stopped racing on a decade ago. It's like designing that perfect V6 internal combustion engine the day after Formula One announced their 2026 power unit regulations.
Exactly. And look, Jensen Huang is playing 4D chess and Intel is kind of like playing checkers. Intel's still arguing about nanometers while Nvidia is selling, intelligence factories. So, winner here, Nvidia, loser, Intel.
Agreed.
Now, Zubin, the matchup everyone keeps asking about, the heavyweight title fight, that's matchup number 2. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that. That's Apple versus Google. Zubin, this wasn't just a rivalry. It was a changing of the guard. Let's start with Apple.
Apple had what we've described as the clustered transition here, which is the polite Wall Street term for engine and sputtering, right? But, first like leadership churn, key silicon and camera engineers leave. And the big one, John Andreas, the AI whisperer they hired from Google, walked away after 7 years. We're doing not much at Apple.
Yeah, and the products mirrored the organization. Apple Intelligence was underwhelming. Siri continues to struggle with, essentially basic comprehension. And after that flirtation with OpenAI, I guess they did the most un-Apple move, licensing Google Gemini for core functions.
Think about that strategic weight of that. Apple, the king of vertical integration, the company that wants to own every single component down to the screw, has essentially outsourced the brain of its phone to its biggest rival. That is a concession of defeat in the AI race.
You're loving this. You're loving this theme. I can see it.
I got my jersey on as well.
Zubin, it brings us back to this conversation you and I were having about genotype versus phenotype that you sort of started in college or B school. The concept also goes back to our episode number 12. Apple's phenotype issues are, essentially AI misses and leadership exits. These are just symptoms. I think the genotype or the DNA of Apple, that's where there's a root cause problem. Apple's DNA is a hardware-first, perfectionist, deterministic, and private organization. AI's DNA is probabilistic, it's messy, it's failure-driven, and it's incredibly data-hungry. So, I think that's a real challenge for them.
And one of my favorite professors at Kellogg, Professor Mohan Bisani, had a very similar analysis, which I absolutely agree on. And you can't win this high variance rates with sort of this deterministic culture. You can't polish a hallucination until it's perfect. You have to ship it, learn. Apple can't do that. That's DNA level.
Now, meanwhile, Google had its best engineering year in a decade, maybe more. Flattened the VP layers, which you and I know were overdue, empowered teams, faster product cadence. Gemini went from a meme to a mensch. The Pixel 10 Pro was, I can tell you from my own, topped every phone list. And cloud AI revenue is up 41%.
Aman, we covered this in episode 5, where we talked about the Google I.O. and a bunch of other stuff. So really, I think the key thesis of this is never bet against an engineering culture that wakes up embarrassed.
Yeah.
Google freaking woke up. They realized their aerodynamics package was wrong. They stripped the car down. They rebuilt it mid-season. So for me, winner Google, loser Apple.
Okay. Finally, for the tech pit lane, the Civil War, matchup number 3, OpenAI versus OpenAI. The only company that can simultaneously win and lose in the same season. Maybe, I think Oracle gave them a little bit of a fight, but, OpenAI versus OpenAI. What do you think, Zubin?
It's really a paradox. OpenAI, the technology, crushed it in 2025.
Totally.
GPT-5 set new benchmarks. 56% of Fortune 500 integrated their tools. Interface costs plummeted. They are the Ferrari engine on the grid. Fastest on the straights.
But OpenAI, the organization, the pit wall is in chaos. 4 board-level crises in 12 months, a mass exodus of safety researchers, political scrutiny, and that $7 trillion global funding tour that startled every regulator on the planet.
It's like that car that is setting the fastest lap times while the pit crew is actively, basically setting the garage on fire behind them. The tech is skating, but the governance is collapsing.
And that matters because in F1, as in tech, you don't win on speed alone. You win on stability. So the winner is OpenAI's technology. The loser is OpenAI's organization. Now, Zubin,